Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. My name is Chris Salem, your host. Hope everybody is having a great week. We want to thank you, the listeners, each and every week joining us here at Business Influencers. It's hard to believe over the 2.5 years how this show has grown in size because of you. And we are committed to you in each and every week in helping to raise your level of influence, not only for your business, but also for you personally. And that's why we're committed to bringing subject matter experts each and every week, sharing content, and most importantly, personal experience to help elevate that business and personal influence to the next level. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. This is a membership program, meaning that it takes all the noise out of social media, allowing you to formulate and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to talk to and share content with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today, and I love this title, and we're going to be talking about something, as a lot of you know, I'm very passionate about personally in the area of emotional intelligence. We're talking about Band-Aids, benefits, and breakouts, and you'll get a better sense of what this means after we talk to our subject matter expert here today. And we have gratitude to have Janice Cardinale here with us. She is the top 100 most influential people when it comes to events, top 50 most influential event professionals, and she's top 50 in the US and Canada as well in terms of being in the Smart Meetings Hall of Fame, Biz Bash 15 over 50, and the list goes on. And she is a founder of Events Minds Matter. And what is she going to be sharing today is something that she is truly passionate about and takes very serious. And it really aligned with me when we had a personal conversation before having her on the show. And without further ado, we welcome Janice Cardinale to the show. Janice, how are you doing today?
I'm great. And I'm really excited about you asking me to be on the show. And it's a wonderful opportunity for me to share some of what we've been doing at Event Minds Matter.
Well, let's just start right there. I know you and I had this conversation, and it just, none of us really expected where it was going to go. And it just really, we had a strong alignment. Let's just talk about the state of what, events are, this could be also in any business too, not just events, and how things are changing, regardless if we're going to evolve with the change or not. What is actually happening, and what can now we be doing better to adapt to these changes, to create better experiences and better potential outcomes as a result of it?
I think there's been a tremendous amount of change over the last couple of years in particular, because a lot of people have become far more honest and authentic about their own circumstances, and they tell their own stories, making it sort of a runway for others to read, listen to, and maybe if it changes one person that's listening to it, that's already a win. So, I have had respected leaders tell me their mental health journeys as an example, and we've shared it on our LinkedIn page because we do not have a website. We live on LinkedIn. Our content, education, initiatives, resources all live on LinkedIn. So, when we told these stories over a 3-month period this past summer, it was groundbreaking because most people that either worked with this person or were friends with this person had no idea what was really in this person's background. So it opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people to look at it and go, wow, there's the mask coming off.
Wow. Let's talk about that mask coming off. I always like to use that term. Taking that mask off. I know I wore a mask for the first 31 years of my life. And when I officially now took that off and lived, truly to who I was, regardless of whatever any other person thought, it was just true freedom, and people adapt, I didn't have that feeling like I didn't feel like I fit in or whatever that may be, like some people might feel.
I think that, to be very honest with you, one of the things that has also happened within the industry that I spent 20 years in is that a lot of the companies, organizations have stepped up in terms of more flexibility, working remotely, providing benefits like therapy sessions and et cetera, et cetera. But I also have an opinion about this after 2 years and after talking to so many people that, it would be valuable to share with your audience.
Please do. I would love for you to outline some of the things that you've just shared here, to unpack that you can share with us right now, that you feel that could be a blueprint. Doesn't mean people have to follow it verbatim, but a blueprint that they can start to modify to something that identifies with them, either if they're in the events industry, or just a business in general, or even life in general, that they could do to move things forward.
Believe that there are no quick fixes to any problems in life. But let's give an example here. You, Chris, for example, are working with me and you take a terrible fall in the office, and you may have even broken an ankle, a foot, a leg, I don't know, something. And what's the first thing that somebody's going to do with you? Well, typically speaking, somebody would come over. Are you okay? Get you some ice, etc. Call 911, get an ambulance, and take you out. They're not going to leave you on the floor and say, okay, Chris, call your 911, get out your cell phone, you get the ambulance, and we'll work without you. Yet, when it comes to a mental health struggle, nobody knows what to say to the person. So there's this fear and unrecognized, mental health issue that nobody knows how to talk to another person about. So I look at all of the, what I now call Band-Aid solutions and benefits that are being thrown at people, but they're singular situations. They are, the money runs out at some point. You can see a therapist X amount of times because maybe you have a couple of $1,000s that you can spend. But you still have to come back to your workplace. And what's changed in your workplace? There's still toxic leadership. There's still a lot of narcissism. There's still a lot of people who are extremely unhappy and don't know what to do or where to go because they need it financially and desperately. So I believe that the core of the problem has yet to be changed. And I think the roots are so deep that a lot of the leaders are not recognizing what really needs to be done. And yet the cost of insurance and benefits is so dramatic and so high. And if we adapt it to, giving people some training on psychological safety, it could make the greatest difference in the world today, not just in our industry, but every industry.
That's so true. And like you said, it's like touching the surface. Like it might be some awareness, but they're not really going deep. That's where the Band-Aid comes in. It's really like, can we get to the root cause? It's like, yeah, you can remove a tumor, but if you don't get it at the root level, the tumor is going to come back. And we're just managing the problem, like you said, what a Band-Aid does. And, if we can spend the time to do some things up front, and it shows the commitment from the top down, more likely people that are below are more likely to possibly now adapt and maybe do more to do for themselves, because they see it through the example and resourcefulness from the top down. And it's so important what you just shared there.
Well, what we know is it has to start at the top.
Yeah.
Because often the person that is leading the team is a manager of some sort, and that manager hasn't necessarily been trained in any kind of health or safety. And so therefore, they don't know what to say to the person. So there's fear on both sides. There's fear from the employee, and there's fear from, that employee's, leader, so to speak. So, and you can understand the fear. The fear is if I let them know that, I have anxiety or I have ADHD, that might, figure down onto my job. Maybe they're going to let me go, which, by the way, Chris, I have to tell you that lots of people are still being let go for things like ADHD, which is absolutely shocking. And there are laws coming into place in different states and different places. In Canada, we're already there, but in the United States, there are really no labor laws where people can go to their labor board and say I am being, let go because of a mental health struggle rather than, them being put in a different position that might be more suitable for their, level of confidence, so to speak.
It's so true. And I think it's, again, it's either a lack of understanding, or if there is, they just tend to kind of see it for what the person, not for the situation. Maybe their communication or behavior, their attitude is not in alignment with somebody else's, but not taking into account what could be causing that. And just assuming or speculating that person's a bad apple or whatever that may be, rather than saying that maybe there's something wrong here, and maybe they require help, or maybe they know but they're afraid, don't feel psychologically safe to state that, hey, I got ADHD, or I have another mental health disorder that I feel uncomfortable disclosing.
An interesting state of affairs right now, because we have been talking about creating a caring culture and putting people first for the last few years, ever since, the pandemic and people came back to work. But part of the problem is so many people in our industry left. They didn't come back to the industry. They recognized when they were able to take some time for themselves that this wasn't the kind of industry they wanted. They didn't want the pressure, they didn't want the stress. And I'm not going to tell you that psychological safety training is going to change the stress, how people deal with things, because in our industry, you're on sometimes 24/7, which is very difficult. However, what isn't happening is that there aren't people to go out there and contract for a job, let's say, where maybe your management needs more help. So, budget wise, that's not happening, putting far more pressure on people than ever before. And the pressure of what used to be a team of 20 is now a team of 2, and they're expected to still do all of what that team of 20 was doing. How's that even possible? It puts so much on one person's mind. And the other thing is, again, if you are the leader, I'm on your team at the table, and you see that I'm not myself, well, what starts to happen? Typically, I start to, I'm not as productive. I'm not as curious. I'm not as excited. I kind of pull back a little bit, enough that you would notice something's wrong. But your fear is asking me what's going on because you don't know what I'm going to say. So part of health and safety training is not to train you to be a clinician or a therapist or a psychiatrist. The whole idea of it is for you to have some emotionally intelligent language, to acknowledge and respect the person and make them feel safe in speaking to you. You're not there to solve the problem, but if you can hand them over resources that are credible, that's what your job really should be.
Yeah.
And leaders today, as far as I'm concerned, need to be teachers, coaches, and mentors.
I agree.
And a lot of them are not. A lot of them, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
And it's one of those things, like when you could be the example and be a resource. Well, be the example first for yourself. Then through that example, be a resource that inspires people. Like I said, they feel more comfortable. They might feel psychologically safe that I can disclose something that could be causing these issues that you're finding with me right now. But instead of now you putting me on the defense, you've put me on the offense. And now I'm more likely to maybe raise my hand and say, hey, I don't know a lot like you think I do in this particular role. Or there is something that you should know about me that you don't, that could be playing a reason why that, there's some kind of friction between me and some people, or not getting things done to your level of satisfaction. So these are the things that, again, because a lot of times people, they just do the bare minimum. They say very little. And everybody that's doing this just going through the motions and then just wondering why so-and-so didn't do this and why this person didn't do this, because they're so caught up in everybody else and not themselves, and so on.
Even the HR people are not trained in emotional intelligence. That's not something most have gone to school or learned. And I would like to suggest here that, if the education was part of the overall course, that somebody's taking, for example, to become a certified meeting planner or a certified meeting management, this would be incredibly helpful because otherwise they're never going to know it. Like psychology, they say in business you need a psychology degree, which is really true. But today, I think in business, you need an emotional intelligence certificate to be able to really deal with people and understand them. Because if you were to tell me something, Chris, then I also am going to repeat it back to you. I'm going to acknowledge it in a way that I understand it. Because what people don't like is when they're working in an organization and their manager isn't listening, doesn't understand what they're telling them. So when you acknowledge it by repeating it back to them, then all of a sudden they're feeling safe because they know you're hearing it. And listening is the greatest thing that we can do with others, and it just, unfortunately, again, we are not prioritizing people. Some people, yes, some people are, but I think that a lot of like the CEOs and, presidents and those types of leaders have just kind of bandaged over it. I've spoken to enough of them to honestly tell you it's not even rational the way they're thinking.
No, I agree. I mean, the key is that, you want to delegate. That's what a CEO, if an effective CEO does, but it's also meaning that you're in communication with the people you're delegating to, so they feel like you have their back and vice versa, and that you understand them, that the CEO, I understand you. I'm listening to relate and understand, not just hear you. I'm looking so that when people feel like they're being interacted through empathy and kindness, it's empowering them now to feel more comfortable or confident to step up in their role and duties. If I make a mistake, I'm not going to be viewed as incompetent, but I'm going to learn from it and not do it again, and then I get better, and so on. And those are the environments that foster, greater retention, greater production and efficiency, and the communication just as increases as a byproduct. And I'm not saying it's that easy the way we just discussed it, but it's a process, and it's just one day at a time that you make those improvements, like you said.
The other thing is, people only now in the last couple of years understand what the word boundaries mean. And that's something that before the COVID pandemic, nobody knew what that meant. Nobody talked about boundaries. You know, it would be a call at night or a call on the weekend, and people just take it because, especially the younger generation who's just starting, didn't know any better. If my boss calls, I better pick up the phone because who knows. And then the clients are the same way. Clients call you on a Friday afternoon as you're heading into your weekend and ask you for the RFP on Monday morning. So it's such a crazy kind of thing. But what's really interesting, and I think your audience will find this, very curious. An event planner is considered the sixth most stressful job. Yet the first five most stressful jobs are all mandated for mental health training. So why is it that the sixth most stressful isn't, is what I'm asking. And I know in Canada that it's just been mandated that farmers now get mental health training, like through the government. So I look at all of these things and I think to myself, here's another one, pilots. There's another group.
Huge.
Because that recently some pilot had an episode while in the air and it really rocked the co-pilot and the attendants and everything. So I don't know that the people knew what was going on, but it just goes to show that you don't know what somebody is going through. And from what I've seen in 2 years and the amount of people I've spoken to is there's more people going through things than you even can fathom.
Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, I was one of those people in the first. I used to always, when something didn't go my way or somebody would said something out of context, I would just label that person, somebody I didn't like. But I didn't understand that there could be a reason for that that person is a mean person. It's just that they could have something going on. It's maybe a situational thing. And, so you have to isolate the problem to the behavior, to the communication, to the attitude, to the emotions and how they react versus respond, or lack of action, and focus on that. And if we can correct that, maybe now what emerges is this better person, this person that I had labeled as, not somebody that I wanted to be around, but somebody that, okay, now we understand what was causing that. And, and not that I have to be a psychologist or a doctor or a therapist, but knowing that if I can understand that and they can be steered to the right people through the EAP or any resources that can help them, that they're going to be able to help themselves and get back on track to the best of their ability.
Hear you. I agree with you. Let's look at the concept, for example, of building community within an organization. One of the things that I find fascinating, because as an entrepreneur in my past couple of, businesses, one of the things that we used to do was meet once a week with our team. And that was absolutely a respected Monday. We meet, we talk about the week past, we talk about the week ahead. But I cannot believe how many people I've spoken to who don't do that. So this is part of the other reason why it's very difficult to build these brave spaces for people to have these conversations, because when you're coming into a brand new company and you are the junior and you're sitting at the table with everybody, where are you in the conversation? And do they show you any kind of real, empathy or mentoring or, why don't you shadow me this week or whatever the case may be? I just feel that the younger generation is a lot smarter now than what we were when we were their age. And I think that their ideas about work are very different than ours were. It's not all money related.
Exactly.
Very much about belonging. It's very much about connecting with people. It's very much about, the experience. And when a lot of things came out, buzzwords and things like that, which I won't even go into right now because we both know what those buzzwords were, part of the reason that people leave companies is because of the lack of culture within them.
Absolutely.
So community is why we built, and what I find fascinating is that most people don't even have a community within their state. Like we built something and now we're North American wide. It's not just in Canada, which is where I'm from.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many people have said, like, thank God you put this together because we don't know where else to go. They don't have a place to go. It's not at work.
Absolutely. We have to have a continuation of this talk. And I know you're going to be on another show of mine shortly, but we're going to have you also back here on Business Influencer again for round 2 or another date to be determined. Again, I wanted to leave this time for about a minute. If you could share with the audience, how can they get in contact with you? What are you up to, and anything you'd like to leave with them?
Well, they can find Event Minds Matter on LinkedIn. There's a space between each word, event, minds with an S, matter. And we are working with a educational program called We Care. We Care in 23 won the Diamond Award for Best Health and Safety Course for Industries. And it came out of Australia. And there is somebody who distributes it across North America that we work with. And I'm convinced that it is truly the most inexpensive and best program there is out there. A lot of people have programs. There's a lot of coaches. In fact, so many people within our industry became coaches. But this is an easy program. As online, it's $95. If you're taking the leadership, it's $250. It's nothing. In today's day and age, it's nothing. Benefits cost way more than that.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. Well, we'll make sure that we're going to include that here in the show notes. Again, we want to thank you personally here from TALRadio and Business Influencers for taking the time to be with us here today.
Thank you very, very much for having me. I'm very grateful.
We are such a pleasure to have you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week for joining us. We highly encourage you to reach out to Janice and take her up on that offer. Really, really great things that she's doing that can make a huge difference in your organization, especially for anybody that's in the events industry as well. Until then, everybody, we want to wish everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.